Hello, Ahmed. Here we are again at
Hi,
your
David.
shop, the Car Care Nut Shop. I'm so
Thank you
happy
so
to be
much.
here. It was almost a year ago when we met, and here we are a second time. And of course, I see you on live stream and so forth. But
Thank you so
to be
much.
here at your shop, beautiful. You have open house tomorrow. It's going to be
Yes.
amazing. You guys know Ahmed from Car Care Nut, probably the most genuine, most authentic, most amazing person who not just takes care of your car, but also just about life in general. You've got
Thank
such
you so
amazing
much.
philosophy and
Thank you
mindset.
so much.
Very inspired all the time. So,
I'm honored.
but
Thank
we're
you.
here for a very important topic, and it's about keeping your car for a very long time, maybe even lifetime.
We're hoping.
Because you can keep anything a lifetime if you take care of it, right?
Yes.
But there's also a lot of controversy because every time we talk about oil change, some other stuff, there's a lot of people saying, okay, now you can't do this or you can't do that, or it costs too much. And so let's maybe be very open today. That's sort of my take, and talk about 10 specific things you can do to hopefully keep your car a lifetime, if not for a very long time anyways.
Yes.
And I think Ahmed and I are very much aligned in terms of what those things are. We both agree on it, but we may have a different perspective, mechanic versus engineer. We might have a slightly different viewpoint, which is what you guys probably want to hear from us. So first, and most important thing is the oil change. I talk about it, you talk about it a lot. I interviewed many chief engineers who claim you should do A or you should do B, and they may have a different viewpoint. But generally speaking, you and I both agree that the scheduled maintenance from the owner's manual, from the car companies are too long.
Yes.
12, 15,000 kilometers or miles. And you said many times it should be for non-turbo and non-hybrid, it should be 5,000 miles, which is about 8,000 kilometers.
In 6 months.
Or-
6 months.
and
The
also 6
time is
months.
also as
6
important
months.
as
for
the
non-turbo. For non-turbo.
Non-turbo.
So
Turbo earlier.
even earlier. So we'll come back to the turbo one. But the important thing is, why 5,000? Why not 7,000? Why not 10,000? What is the magic number to do with 5,000?
It's not really a magic number, but if you look at the average, how much folks drive a year, it's anywhere from 10 to 15,000.
Right.
Basically, at 5,000 miles, and what we see from our just working on cars, that's around the average miles of the average driver in the average driving conditions.
Right. Not
That's
towing,
when
not doing anything.
filters start to bypassing.
Yes.
Basically, they're no longer filtering anymore and they get bypassed. That's when oil has enough saturation with fuel, has enough breakdown of
Contaminants, I guess.
the additive package and whatnot. Although when you send it for a test in a lab, it's going, oh, it's great and all that,
Yeah.
great. But that's when you start seeing like varnish buildup.
Right. Which is degradation, right? General degradation
Yes.
of the.
You open up an engine, you see at the top of it, you're going to have all kinds of varnish build up everywhere. If we see with engines that go over 5,000 miles over the course of their life, they'll have significantly more when you do over 5,000. So 5,000 came up as a general recommendation. And look, if you're going to do it at 3,000 miles, you cannot hurt an engine
better.
by changing the oil too frequently. There's no such thing.
But there's something important that you just mentioned earlier, and that's about the oil analysis, because I get that a lot from people watching my videos. They say, hey, you know what, at 5,000 miles, you send this engine oil for a sample, and it looks totally fine, it's still functioning and lubricating as an engine oil. But what most people don't realize is that it gets contaminated with, as you talk about in the past too, with water, other debris from the engine, and so it's not so much how effective the engine oil is, but it's also the fact that engine oil is carrying other sediments, other contaminants, and it's mixing with the engine oil. So the engine oil itself might be okay, but it's no longer the same engine oil that you put in when you first change the oil, and that's why you need to change it, because you need to get rid of all the stuff that's saturated and that's mixed in with engine oil. Is that something?
The thing that we're seeing with analysis is very accurate. Some folks have said, oh, it's all hoax and whatever. It's not. Of course, it's very accurate. It's science and it works.
It's accurate.
But the problem is, think of it this way, when we talk about a doctor and a human body, you go do a blood test. It doesn't tell you everything.
Right.
And then a blood test today and a blood test 3 months from now could be a very different story, because there are other factors that you just cannot detect in the oil.
That's right,
Factors like contaminants that stay. You take an oil sample, you took an oil sample of the cycling oil, but what about the oil that does not cycle? What about what it left behind? You're not opening up the engine and taking multiple samples from multiple locations of this engine and sending it.
That's right.
That's
You're taking
unrealistic.
A small percentage,
Yes.
yeah, small sample.
And okay, and this is the biggest thing with oil analysis. You get the results back. Okay, you have this metal elevated. So what do we do now? Tear the engine down?
Right.
Damage is already done.
Yes.
You have metal in the oil, damage is already done. We're trying to not get to that point. And you do oil analysis, it's good, it's good, it's good, then it's not good.
Then it's too late.
What
It's
changed?
too late.
The oil analysis did not help you prevent what changed.
So
That's the problem.
Yes, I hopefully people understand the importance and significance of the engine oil, because it's probably the cheapest insurance, right, for a car. It's the cheapest thing you can do. I know it's not cheap anymore to take it to a local dealership, but hopefully you find a shop like Ahmed's shop here where its cost is reasonable and they're honest. And but the point is, it's compared to anything else that you do with a car, it's the cheapest insurance to keep the engine lasting a long time. And of course, if you have an electric car or a plug-in hybrid, maybe things change a little bit. You're not using the engine as much, but for all non-turbo, all non-hybrid vehicles, that's the rule that we both stand by. Now, it's a little bit, so we have like a couple cars here. Non-turbo car here. We have what engine do we have on this Supra?
That one's
come
turbo.
on this way for a second.
That was actually turbo. That's a
This one is turbo.
2JZ GT turbo.
We got the naturally aspirated V8 on this one.
The 2UZ.
So if it's a turbo or hybrid, there's additional stress in terms of the engine oil carrying contaminants and so forth. Tell us what you suggest.
The biggest thing with turbos is heat.
Right.
Turbos could generate a lot of heat, and the driving habits of folks is what cooks the oil. You drive a turbo engine, you've been just driving it hard on a highway, turbo's been spooling for a very long time, they're really hot. You stop and you shut it off right away. Well, the oil flow will stop, and that oil that is sitting in the line in the turbo just gets subjected to extreme heat.
Yes.
Where it's gonna cook that oil so much. First, you created some sludge in the passages, and then once you start the engine again, that cooked oil will cycle into the. Eventually, you do that so many times. We notice in turbo engines, oil get significantly more like contaminated full and dark, and the engines turn to they build a lot of varnish very quickly when you have a turbo, because you're adding a secondary source of heat in addition to the engine itself.
Now keep in mind, some of you guys who might remember the horror stories from the 70s and 80s with the turbo. It's not quite that way anymore, because the turbos do stay cycling, I should say. And therefore not engine oil doesn't get cooked as soon as you turn off the engine. So they did resolve that.
Not always.
Not always, true. But generally speaking, the engine oil is not, like, it's not in the 1980s where it stopped.
Because turbos have gotten better, where they don't have, like we have ball bearing turbos. Oil technology has gotten better.
Yes.
Cooling has gotten better. That's why we're able to kind of minimize that effect. But is it still there? Absolutely.
Of course,
If you overdo it, it's going to happen.
Heat.
But it's a lesser chance. But still, turbo car, keep it simple. Less than 5,000. I mean, if you ideally keep it around 3,000.
3,000 miles. So for turbocharged engine, again, 3,000 miles is what you recommend.
3 months.
In 3 months, not 6 months. Now, a lot of people say they can't afford the time or the money to change that often. What do you say? What's a compromise here?
Engine oil is cheaper than an engine.
That's true. If you want to keep it for a long time.
turbo.
Yeah, because our premises here is that if you want to keep a car for 10, 20, 30, maybe lasting a lifetime, then this is what you have to do. If you want to keep the car for 3 years, a little bit different, right? You're going to just run through a lease cycle and return the car. Well, that's not the same thing as what we're talking about here. So 3,000 miles, 3 months, if it's turbocharged engine.
Yes.
What about hybrid?
Same thing with the non-turbo ones. 5,000 miles, 6 months, regardless if the engine comes on and off. Just keep it simple. 5,000 miles, 6 months for regular cars, turbo engines. 3,000 is ideal, but anything below 5 is ideal as well.
All right, so that's the engine oil. That's the first one. That's very important. Second thing that people talk about or ask about is transmission fluid, and that's a little bit trickier.
Yes.
Because
transmission fluid, most manufacturers are moving towards, it's a lifetime fluid. What's the lifetime? The end of the warranty? That I think is more like it for the lifetime. For Toyota, now every manufacturer will be different, but I specialize in Toyota and Lexus. For Toyota and Lexus, 60,000 miles, 6 years seems to be a good interval. Fluid is not heavily contaminated, but you're not, this is the thing with transmissions, you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to not do it.
Right.
You don't want to change the oil every 5,000 miles on the transmission, because some folks have done that, actually harmful.
Yeah.
You don't also want to go well over 100,000 miles without changing the fluid, because then the opposite effect happens. Now you go change the fluid, now we are introducing problems. Complicated the reasons why, but we'll keep it simple for a transmission. Don't fall for the lifetime fluid, because there is no such thing. Nothing is lifetime. We are not lifetime.
That's right.
So change the fluid at 60,000 miles for Toyota or Lexus, 6 years.
6 years,
Keep it
60,000.
simple, hybrid
That's
or
easy to
not.
remember. Yeah.
And then if you have over 100,000 miles though and you've never changed it, possibly leave it alone, because you're going to cause more harm than good.
Yeah, so sometimes if you are changing the transmission fluid, for example, you don't want to do the flashing, right? You don't want to, you just want to just let the oil drain.
Flush is too harsh. You can do it, but
it might
it's
damage.
too harsh. A drain of fill is probably safer.
Safest, yeah. Drain, then change.
Less intrusive.
Yeah. But it's not lifetime, that's the main
There
thing.
is no such thing.
Okay, so we covered the engine oil, transmission. Any other fluid? What about coolant? That's also...
Coolant is very important,
Very important.
lately, because we're seeing manufacturers use super long life coolants that supposedly also last forever.
Also like a lifetime,
But we're
yeah.
seeing a lot of gasket erosion, high acidity. We're seeing all kinds of leaks caused by coolants there too long. As simple as that.
Right.
Coolant is the same thing. Coolant over time gets acidic and starts attacking usually what they attack is not like we have metal gaskets now and things are really high tech. They start attacking coatings on top of gaskets, because you can't put a metal gasket alone. You need some kind of coating on top of it. They start attacking that. We're seeing premature head gasket failure, water pump failures, multiple other components that have gaskets, they start leaking prematurely.
Right.
With coolant, at least with Toyota, 50,000 miles, 5 years is a good interval.
Okay.
This is where we usually start seeing problems beyond that.
Beyond that.
Reaching to the 100,000 mile factory interval.
5 years is actually a long time to keep
I mean,
cool.
I see folks buy new cars. All they're doing is oil change until you get to 50,000 miles. You do the coolant, get to 60, do the transmission, and then we go another 50,000
through a whole
miles. Just to know.
cycle.
I mean, that's not bad.
Now I know some of the older cars uses a red coolant, some are, the new ones are pink coolant.
Yes.
What's the difference between
the red
the two?
coolant was the regular coolant.
The old
that
style
actually,
coolant?
Yes, that actually has a 30,000 mile interval. The red coolant loves to cause corrosion toward the end of its life. If you leave it, like it's common to get like old 90s cars with the original coolant.
Yes,
You'll have
yes.
like a block of rust at the bottom of the radiator. That's very common with red coolant when you leave it. But the pink coolant is better in that aspect. It does last longer. You don't have that flash like corrosion inside, but then it turns acidic much faster.
Right,
That's
right.
the problem.
Different
Some folks have
composition.
said pink coolant is a problem. It's not pink coolant that's a problem. It's the intervals.
Right,
100 and 150,000 miles.
Wow, that's a long
That's a
time.
long
That's too
interval.
long.
That's
Yeah.
way too much. 50,000 miles. And folks, I'm just going to say this. Just something we have discussed. If this is too much for maintenance, just remember things cost a lot more when you have problems. And if it's too much, learn to do it yourself. Save yourself on the labor. Use the right fluids, but learn to do it yourself. That's what we have all these YouTube videos for, to
Yes.
help you do things better with your car.
And some of the work is not as difficult, right? I mean, everyday person can do that.
Yes.
But just coming back to the coolant, can you put the new type of pink coolant in the older cars where the red coolant was?
Ideally, no.
I didn't know. You stick with the same type.
The old cars will have old gaskets, and they're different material gasket. You put the pink, the chances of that attacking these is much higher.
higher,
So
okay.
don't mix coolants. Use the factory coolant. If your car has red, stay with the red. If your car has pink, stay with pink.
Stay with pink.
At least for Toyota.
Okay, all right. Anything else with the fluid that we should worry
So
about?
few other fluids. Brake fluid, you want to test it for moisture content. Unless it's a performance application, you do want to change it every 2 years. If you
Yes.
use it on a heavy track, use 2 years regardless of moisture content. The other thing is differential fluids and transfer case. If it's a truck, off-road every 30,000 miles. If you're not off-roading or not towing, 30,000 miles and then 50,000 miles after that. The first replacement is 30,000 ideal.
Okay.
Get some of the initial shavings from the build and whatnot.
Right. So for those people who do towing and so forth, the intervals are a little bit more stringent,
Yes,
right?
30,000
But for average user, average consumer, you don't have to do as often.
You can go, the first replacement we like it at 30, but subsequent replacement every 50 is
50.
okay.
The first one's important because you want to get some of those debris out.
Yes,
Right? Same thing for all fluids.
We see the heaviest contamination on new cars on the first replacement. Like you do 30,000 miles, heavy contamination. You go 60, like the next 30,000 miles, not as much.
Not as
so
much.
the first replacement
one's
is
very important. Yeah. All right. So those are the fluid. Now, what about the brakes? Something that sometimes gets ignored. Brakes are often ignored until you hear squeaks and so forth, or people are finding problem with the brakes. What again, compared to what owner's manual is saying, I think with the brakes, it's more to do with as you figure out how much is worn out. Right
So,
now, we're moving away from intervals a little bit more.
Recommendation on brakes. Every car, in my opinion, should get an annual inspection. It doesn't have to be by a mechanic. It could be by the owner of the car if they're savvy, they're involved with their car. You should check your brakes on a yearly basis. If you drive excessive miles, you should move that to 6 months, because brakes, the first, like most brake pads, 10, 11 millimeters, depends on the type of car. The first 5 millimeters of wear will take a lot longer than the second 5 millimeters of wear. Right. So folks need to be aware of that. When you're at 50% point on the brake pads, your degradation to 10% is going to be a lot faster,
right?
Because you don't have as much surface on the pad, and you don't have as much area to dissipate the heat. It's going to increase. That is pretty typical. That's why when you get to 3 millimeters, we recommend replacement on the brakes, because the travel from 3 to 1 millimeter, which is critical, is a lot faster.
Fast,
So you get to 3 millimeters on your brakes, and how would you find that if you don't check them? Check them on an annual basis.
So now we're moving into areas where you do based on the need, right?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily 6 months or 1 year.
Same thing with like filters, and then other suspension components, leaks, whatnot. That all needs to be part of the annual inspection in a car.
Now that reminds me, back to the engine oil, we do change the engine oil filter at the same time as
every time.
Oil, every time.
Every time.
We're not going to skip that part.
Yeah, do not see folks do this where they change the filter every other oil change. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Because the number one thing that stops working after 5,000 miles is the filter.
Filter, yes.
So that's
it gets clogged. So coming back to the brakes again. So again, do an inspection. Either you yourself, you're capable, you can do a check or take it to a shop. But it's based on how you drive. So it's not based on the time so much, but you're going to check on the amount of brake pads left. And of course, the type of brake pads you choose also affects intervals, affects the performance. Some are noisier, some are quieter. Any comments on that?
In my opinion, when it comes to Toyota and Lexus, don't buy aftermarket pads. If you admire the original ride quality of the car, look, majority of Toyotas are not performance cars.
Right.
They're more comfort oriented and kind of reliability oriented. I would stick with original pads. That's just my opinion. You can experiment. You'll have noise, premature wear, strange stuff, even with good pads. This is something with Toyota, I don't know what's the deal. They're not very aftermarket friendly with brakes.
Right, yeah.
Especially like drum brakes, they're really not. But disc brakes, we've seen a lot of issues with aftermarket. I would stick with the original.
Which brings up to this same point here, which is the fact that you should always buy OEM parts, original equipment manufacturer's parts, if you can.
Yes.
I know some third-party brands are really good, maybe sometimes better.
There are some equivalents, or like in the case of Toyota, a Toyota radiator and a Denso, they're basically the same unit. Not exactly the same, but similar unit. Another one is like Denso plugs. Denso really is one of them. And then Asian, I think Asian, but that's another manufacturer of the OE manufacturer.
Yes, but you guys might not be aware, Denso and Aishin are both owned by Toyota. It's basically a Toyota company. They are very large, some of the largest suppliers in the world. But for all intents and purposes, they function as part of the Toyota subsidiary. So
we see that in their part quality; it's very high.
Or even my wiper blade in my Lexus ST430, it's made by Denso. It's a Denso wiper blade.
How about that?
You know, like it's nothing else seems to perform the same way. Any parts that you think are okay if it's not OEM? So let's forget Denso and Aishin. Aishin is a transmission manufacturer. They're obviously part of a Toyota family of businesses, but anything else that you think is okay that's not OEM?
I don't know. Air filter?
Maybe air filter, maybe wiper
Honestly,
blades.
I may be a little on the extreme side because I work in the repair industry. You want to keep the car reliable, just buy original parts.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah.
I see this all the time. Problem with aftermarket parts. And here's the biggest thing: most original parts, yes, for Toyota, they are more expensive because they are better.
Yes.
Not because they're just more expensive. But sometimes aftermarket parts are more expensive, which is
that's
beyond me.
actually, oftentimes it is more expensive.
Yes.
I mean, the only exception is I really like Bosch wiper blades, moving away from mechanical things. And so I use the Icon Bosch wiper blades on many cars because these days, I think there's something about the wiper blades that have happened in the last several years where there seems to be moving to cheaper material and they skip a lot more than in older days. Because older days we had a metal wiper blade, it's heavy, it doesn't skip. Now it's all plastic, now it's all wind aerodynamically designed and they skip a lot. So I tend to use a heavier wiper blades. All right, so now we're on to the sixth point, which is about the spark plugs.
Yes.
Okay, something we didn't talk about earlier. How often should you be changing?
So spark plugs will vary by manufacturer. I'm going to talk about Toyota. That's what I specialize in. We have 3 intervals with Toyota. Old school Iridiums, 120,000 miles. They seem to hold at 120,000 miles. A lot of folks will take them out at 120, look at them. Oh, they look fine. The gap is good. Look, that's the whole point. You don't want your spark plugs to be completely destroyed when you're driving on them. The second interval is 60,000 miles. Some of the direct injection engines, not all of them, some of them, they are requiring 60,000 simply because of the harsh conditions with direct injection. Turbo engines, 40,000 miles,
40,000,
which is a pretty short interval considering. But again, the harsher the conditions in the combustion chamber, the more often you're going to need to change plugs. And a lot of these cars, they're simple to change the plugs. Some of them are more complicated, but definitely something out. If you have a 4-cylinder Toyota, definitely recommend you do it yourself. It's very simple. Buy original plugs though. That's the biggest thing. Folks, you go buy, even Denso plugs, I usually typically kind of be wary from them. I know that the factory ones are Denso. You go buy a Denso plug, it's a universal one-size-fits-all, not specific to this car.
It's different.
The gaps are different.
Yeah, from the
You have to set the gap. Setting a gap on an Iridium plug is very tricky because if you put just the old school thing, you just wiped out the Iridium tip. That's a problem.
So the miles you just mentioned, that's the Toyota's intervals? Is that your recommendation for spark
That's the Toyota interval. That's correct.
So you're saying we can stick with that?
Yes. I haven't seen any issues with that.
Okay. So here's
120,000 miles, you pull a plug,
it still looks okay.
Decent. Yes.
So here's an interesting one. We're actually saying that for spark plugs, we don't have to do more often.
Not everything. Some intervals are okay, some of them are not.
But in the spark plug, we're okay to stick with whatever the Toyota recommends. Obviously, you're going to check it. Like you said, once in a while, you're going to check if something might be wrong. But so here's one bonus then. In this case, you don't have to change more often than what Toyota is telling you. But still, stick with the OEM parts, as we mentioned.
I definitely would.
Now, here's an interesting one. Tires, something that people don't always talk about when in the context of maintenance. And I have a bit of an interest in tires just because I worked in a number of different factories that also produced tires in the past. And, you know, there's all this misconception and misunderstanding about, you know, below 7 degrees Celsius, sorry about that, 7 degrees Celsius, you know, all-season tires are useless, also tread depth, also number of years. And so there's a lot of confusion. What is your current recommendation when it comes to when you should replace the tires?
Well, in the United States, 3/32 is illegal in most states. That's the measurement of the tread. Most folks will be able to tell when their tires are worn. You know, they're looking at it. Some of them will use the pennies, whatever the case. Although I recommend you buy a gauge. It's very inexpensive. Amazon, a few bucks. Check it. It's the most accurate way. Most folks will get their tires right when they wear down. But there's something I see all the time. Time.
Yes. People forget the time.
Do you know how many cars I see in the shop on 10, 15-year-old tires? They look perfect. Tread depth is, but rubber dries over time, folks. And you get a tire that becomes so stiff and hard, it has dry rot cracks all over it. You hit one bump hard enough, it's just gonna break. And that's the more dangerous thing is when you look at the tire, oh, I have plenty of life left on it. But you actually don't. All tires will have a build date on them. Usually 4 numbers. The first 2 numbers are the week of the year they were built. The second 2 numbers are the year. You got to track that. I mean,
And how long would you say it's
six to
acceptable?
6, 7 years, I would
Yeah.
want to replace these tires the most. I
And-
see folks driving on 10-year-old tires on the highway at 80 miles an hour. It's dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Now, I will admit, as an engineer, I would say it's also weather dependent.
Yes.
So, let's say in Vancouver, where I'm from, the weather is very mild. We don't get too much freezing temperatures. The rubber compound will, chemically speaking, last longer than if you're in a very cold climate.
Yes.
Or if you do off-roading, you're going to get the compound to work itself through, and it's going to wear out more often. So, obviously, more severe driving will require you to think about that, and it might be 6 years or 5 years. But generally speaking, the other important thing is that people wait until it's almost worn out.
Yeah.
And then, so let's say it's within 7 years or 6 years, but it's almost worn out, and they say, you know what, I can still make it. I can go another year. What people don't realize is not the maintenance side, but the performance side, which is the ability for tires to actually grip, dramatically is reduced when compound and the tread is at the last 10%, let's say.
Yes.
And so people don't realize how dangerous it is to drive an all-season tire that's almost worn out in the middle of a winter, let's say in Chicago.
Even in rain.
Yeah, or even
Rain
rain.
is more than enough to...
It's going to aquaplane on the highway, and it's super dangerous. So I usually recommend people to change tires way often, and way more than based on the tread depth, because they're just not very useful. And the funny thing is, you see the forums, people say, oh, I went from Bridgestone to Michelin, let's say. Oh, the tires are so much better, and they don't seem to realize you're comparing a car that's 7 years old, almost worn out, to a brand new tire. If you switch to the exact same tire, but it's brand new, it's going to feel way better also. So don't listen to the comments in the forums and so forth, where people are making a statement based on old tire versus new. It's not a fair comparison.
No,
and also tire
it's not.
technology changes a lot. When it comes to tires, I'm quite picky about it.
Yes.
And so I change my tires more often. I like to try different tires.
You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, so they're expensive, obviously, but probably the most important aspects of performance, because it's the only thing that's keeping you in contact with the road,
Yes.
right? There's nothing else between the car and the road. So,
Yes.
so tires are
very important.
Tires are very important. All right, so we're kind of getting to the end of this 10 list, 10 golden rules, I call it. But the next one is about the type of gas. This is very important. It's really confusing because so many of normal Toyota cars are now asking for premium.
Yes.
Of course, premium has 89, 91, 93, 94, and different versions of octane rating. And as more and more cars are requiring premium, what is your take on where this whole thing is evolving?
This is actually an old conversation on the Lexus side. Early Lexus, they used to take premium, and folks will say, why? I have the same engine in my Toyota. Why does this one take premium? Tuning.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. So we'll keep this one simple, because this one has been heavily debated.
Yes.
If your car takes premium, stay with premium. If your car takes regular, put regular. What you're not going to do is put regular in a premium car. Immediate harm, especially if you drive a little bit hard, you're going to hear it, spark knock, and severe damage is on the way. I cannot emphasize it, how important that is, the point. But if you have a regular car, the car that takes regular gas, and you put premium, you are just wasting your money. Some folks have reported, oh, it's got better gas mileage, better this. There really isn't a scientific reason why that is the case, but you're absolutely not doing anything with the car. Yeah. Here's the biggest misconception. Premium fuel is better, cleaner, makes the engine run better. That's not the case. It's just an octane number, folks. Yeah. Basically, we're not going to get into the science behind it, but if you want to put better gas in your car, at least in the United States, I don't know how things are in Canada, there's something called top tier. It's an agreement between the oil companies of certain standards above the requirement from the government that we're going to adhere by. Cleanliness, certain additives, certain things that we're going to do to make this fuel better. I would seek those better than going to put premium in your regular car.
So I think that by that you're saying certain brands of gas might be better than other brands.
Yes, potentially. Actually not potentially. Top tier and non-top tier.
Yeah.
The other companies may do something similar, but top tier is a standard that has to be adhered to.
So I'm with you on this one. So I wouldn't recommend that you buy gas from some brand that you never heard of, because it's just a little bit cheaper. Because you may not have the same attitude, may not have the same condition.
It's cheaper for a reason.
But what about cases where the manufacturer recommend the premium but not requiring premium.
That's a
And
tough one.
I have opinion on that.
That's a tough one. They're basic. I think that's a marketing gimmick, honestly, because you can't have both.
Yes.
And the level of engineering and design that has to happen for the car to detect what you have,
Yes.
it's just not feasible. I feel like they're putting that to basically tell the consumer, well, you can put regular just for you to buy the car and thinking you're going to put regular, but then once you drive it, has severe performance issues until you put premium, which is just put premium. When you see that, I think I'll kind of call this car as a just premium car.
So this is where I have a very similar opinion as you, but slightly different from a different angle. And so what they do is when they recommend a premium or a premium is required, then the emission standard and all of the testing is done at the octane rating. So when they publish the horsepower and the torque and the RPM, the peak torque range, are all done with that particular gas. And so what happens is let's say if it's a recommended premium, but you put regular gas, you get a little bit less power, a little bit less torque, not much, usually between 1 to 3%, a little less power, less torque. Also, the peak RPM changes a little bit, and therefore it's no longer the same as what the manufacturer said to you in the brochure. Yes. It's not meeting the spec. So, but you can drive that way. So I think what I want to emphasize, I agree with Amit that whatever is either recommended or required, stick with that. But if it's recommended but not required, and you put regular gas, you can get almost all of the performance, but not quite. My guess is between 1 to 3%. Less power, less torque, a little bit less efficiency. Because it's less power, of course, you tend to adjust your acceleration due to less power, for example. But you can drive the car that way. So I do want to emphasize that it's not a problem in the short term. Longer term, it could cause a problem. So I would still say that if it's recommended but not required, you should stick with a premium. But there is a kind of marketing side of the whole thing, which is
you can put this, but nobody has told you that your car is actually becoming less power, less everything.
Less power,
and technically speaking, from a technical side, any car can technically do that. They're just kind of programming the fuel map and everything to be able to have a wider room of adjustment. Because most cars, when they take premium and you put regular, it's going to knock. It's going to back off the timing completely, where it reaches the maximum amount of timing that it can back it off, and it's still knocking. That's when it cannot do more, and you start harming things. On the cars that have a recommendation, perhaps they have a wider room of adjustment, where it can back it off enough, where they tested it with regular, where we can get it to a safe level, but at the cost of cutting the performance. It's still not ideal, because you are basically asking the computer to kind of revert the timing so back to compensate for this. Just put premium. That's what I'm going to say.
And to kind of a final comment on this is that what if you put like ultra premium, like 94 versus like 91 or 92? My comment probably would be the same as yours, which is you're probably wasting money.
Yes, but unless you're on a track, pushing the car to its limit, maybe there's some benefits, but
a little bit. Again,
usually not in daily drive.
Not enough to offset the cost of the gas, but if you're asking me, do you get more power and do you get more torque? You do, but it's kind of range 0.5% to maybe 1 to 2% above and beyond the premium to the ultra premium. So it's not going to save you money, but if you're trying to squeeze out every power and torque you can, yes, you do get a little bit more if you put the maximum amount of octane rating. Okay, enough on the gas. Anything else we want to talk about? What about winter storage? Something that's important for you guys.
That is.
Not so much for us in the West Coast, but a lot of people don't know what to do with salt, underneath. Do you put the oil on the frame? What happens to the battery? That's a very important thing. The battery, basically disintegrates if you don't charge it, and so forth. So, any suggestions?
Two things you could do with batteries: battery maintainers, or, and this is a little bit of an old school way. So you park your car, you're not going to drive it in the winter. Let's say, for example, this is my car. It has a 24F size battery. I have another car that has a 24F size battery, and I'm going to drive it all year long. I'm just going to take the battery out of this, put it in that car, drive it, because you will no battery maintainer will get this battery fully healthy like driving it, where it's charge-discharge cycles regularly. You could do that. That's a little bit more work. But the other thing is disconnecting the battery. This is what folks don't realize. Disconnect the battery and leave the maintainer on it. Because every car will draw a very small amount.
That's right,
Which up to a month it's fine, but 6 months in storage, you're putting this
That's a long
maintainer,
time.
basically the maintainer is fighting that draw all the time.
That's right, yeah.
You can disconnect it and leave the maintainer just to maintain the battery where it doesn't have a draw.
That's right, yeah.
Eventually though, even with the maintainer, you leave a battery sit, it's going to degrade.
Yes.
Instead of it lasting 5, 6, 7 years, it's going to start lasting less and less and less. It becomes less reliable. That's one thing on the battery for storage. The other thing is, which is the thing that gets the most damage, tires. Flat spots. I mean,
not moving.
If you have some expensive tires that you want to preserve, ideally pull them off the car, put them on a shelf, not stacked on top of each other on the side, and store them that way. Maybe if it's a very expensive car that or very expensive tires, buy yourself a cheap set of wheels, put some cheapo tires just for storage purposes, and throw it on. Because tires, once they get flat spots, you cannot.
It's hard to get rid of it, right?
Yeah, you're gonna take. It's just. There's nothing to do.
You feel
about
like when
that.
you drive on the highway.
But
here's an easy advice and practical advice, which is just try to find a way to drive the car for,
that
even
would be
for a
nice.
short time.
That's usually cars are meant to be driven.
Exactly. Not for 1 minute or 2 minutes, but if you're able to just drive it, even the parking lot, run the engine, move around.
We actually recommend minimum 15 to 20 minutes of driving because
in the wintertime especially.
It's actually more harmful for cars to start it, let it run for 5-10 minutes and shut it off.
Yeah.
That is not good.
So ideally you drive it, even in the wintertime, let's say once a month, top up the battery, make sure fluids are okay, let the engine run through.
Because in bad weather, you're not going to have snow and salt every single day of the year. So you can find a day that is a little bit better and you can take it for a quick drive. It's not going to harm or anything.
And the battery, just going back to the battery thing, I now connect the maintenance battery charger all that on every car, even if I don't drive for about 3 weeks or so even.
That's a good idea.
They come down quite dramatically, and I have a 1981 Eldorado, and I have a battery disconnect. So I just disconnect
the easiest thing.
Yeah. But just keep in mind that on modern cars, when you disconnect the battery, it could give some issues. The passwords and everything gets reset, and you may have to, of course, AMD can do that, but for average person, if you disconnect the battery, it will reset certain things, and you may have to go to a dealership to.
Toyota and Lexus are probably one of the easiest companies.
Easier one to do that? Okay.
Most of the calibrations you can actually do it yourself. Like usually Windows, but there isn't. Most of their computers are now memory kept alive. It doesn't really wipe out the main stuff. Usually it'll idle funny, like older cars. If the throttle body has never been clean, it'll idle funny. But Toyota seems to be one of the better companies when it comes to disconnecting. They don't have as much strange stuff.
The memory seat, though, it's often a problem.
Yes, you have to calibrate.
It gets reset.
Most of the calibrations you can do it yourself if you know what the procedure is, but it doesn't require a scan tool for the most part.
Yes. Yeah, so it's not uncommon to see not just the memory seat, but the power seat gets initialized. You have to actually to reset that, move it all the way back, all the way forward, fold it down, move it forward, and then it resets the memory again. But those are minor things. So I'm kind of keeping the last one, which is the 10th point, open here. Any other thing that we didn't cover today?
I'm going to share.
Oh, sorry. Actually, I'm very sorry about that. I forgot to talk about should you put oil and sulfur underneath to make sure that underneath the car, undercoating,
absolutely,
or oil. What do you
live
recommend?
in a salty, I call it salty area. If you live in the area where salt is used, undercoating is very important.
Any undercoating? Is there a certain style you recommend?
Not a specific one. I like the ones that are like non-permanent, like fluid film, like Blaster Shield, to name a few.
T10 or
because
something.
they do wear off as you drive, but they're not invasive where you can't wipe them off if you need to. Because the problem with the permanent coating, if they're not prepped right and done right, rust could start forming behind it.
Right.
I have a full video dedicated to how that process, oxidation works, but undercoating is definitely recommended. Big recommendation.
Okay, nothing else in terms of winter storage they have to keep in mind? Tires?
Not necessarily.
Battery?
The best thing to do for winter storage is not to have winter storage.
Yeah, that's right. Use it.
Cars are meant to be
buy the winter tire and then drive it. I agree 100%.
But I understand, I have cars that I store in the winter as well. Fortunately, some damage will happen. You have to accept that. There is no way around it. Battery maintenance is important. Tire maintenance is important. But yeah.
Last one. Anything top of your head?
I'm gonna say two things.
Okay, sure. Two things is fine.
I feel like at the shop with
bonus.
customers, I say it every day.
Okay.
Two things. Take care of it, and it'll take care of you. As simple as that.
Very simple.
You don't have to be a mechanic. You don't have to be a DIYer that's constantly working on your car. It's okay to take your car to a shop, but it's not okay when you have no idea what happened to your car. You just take it, hand the keys, hand them a check. Don't be that type of car owner. You need to keep a journal. It's very simple. Keep a little book, keep it in the glove box. You have better things to do with your life than your car. I understand that. That's 99% of folks are like that. Whenever you do service, write the date, what you did, mileage.
You can probably get an app these
Simple
days
as that. You
for
can
that.
even get an app, but if you want to keep it old school, simple as that. Keep the receipts. Don't throw stuff. Keep it organized. So when you're asked, hey, when was the last time you did a transmission fluid? I don't remember. It's been 6 years, 60,000 miles. You have a record to go to.
Exactly.
So you're not neglecting maintenance, but at the same time, you're not overdoing it and wasting your money. That's the number one thing. The second thing is, and this is the opposite extreme of that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I see this all the time.
Overdoing is not good.
Overdoing things when they're not broken, because cars, as they age, things get fragile, things get brittle, things are old. The less you disturb, the better. Don't go just for no reason, just because we want to do things. Start changing things and doing this, because that's how you sometimes create problems. If it ain't broke,
leave it alone.
don't fix it. If you have the engine open, obviously there's stuff you're going to take and you want to preventatively change them, that's a different story. But if the car runs perfectly fine, leave it alone. Casing point is AC. You should not service that AC system if it works perfectly fine. Get it checked out, check pressures, check whatnot, have a professional look at it. But there's no reason to recharge it because it's a sealed system.
Yes.
It has no leaks. But that's how you introduce contaminants, and now we have problems because we couldn't leave it alone. That's what I mean by that.
So that's one extra bonus you added, and I'll add one more, making it 12 points instead of 10 points. And that is just because I'm a former body engineer, in terms of paint, keeping the paint in good shape, the whole body in good shape. So obvious thing is, like, if you get a scratch where the scratch actually goes into the bare metal, make sure you touch it up. Even if you don't have the right paint, just put something in there to protect it from further damage. And then worst thing you can do to the paint is bird poo, because it's acidic, and if it sits on there, it leaves a permanent damage, not repairable. Oftentimes it goes through the clear coat onto the second coat and maybe even the base coat. So you got to always wash out bird poo. Tree sap's also really bad.
When it dries up.
Yeah, it's just
it's
not
very
only
difficult to remove.
Very difficult to remove, and then you have to use a strong cleaner to remove it, which isn't good. So you don't have to buy an expensive $2,000 ceramic coating, but at least wash it and then wash off all the dirt, contaminants, and then put some simple wax on it. It doesn't have to be expensive. There's so many good waxes these days. The point is to keep the paint slippery, so when bird or some other things falls onto it, you can wash it off, or it doesn't stick to the paint at all. Because you only got, as you guys know, I measure the paint thickness all the time. There's only about 120 microns of total paint, which includes the undercoating and the paint and the clear coat above the metal.
They're getting thinner by the year.
120 microns. I mean, it's super. Yeah, it used to be like 250 microns, and now it's half. And so the paints are not durable anymore. So yeah, I do recommend, if you can, put the PPF on it. But PPF, just don't forget, it's not permanent. It's expensive, and they take the parts apart to put it on. So I don't do PPF. I do ceramic coating, like a not expensive one, but affordable one, and that keeps most of the contaminants off the paint, and it's easy to wash. So that's our last advice. I hope if you follow Amit's advice, some of my comments and so forth, your cars will easily last 10 years, 20 years. I have a 1981 Eldorado. I have a 2004 Lexus SC. They're both in great shape.
Got to bring that one to the shop.
I got to bring both of them to your shop. One of these days I'll do a road trip and come and visit Ahmed here and bring the Lexus here. But yeah, our wish is that you'll keep your car for a long time, enjoy it, because cars are expensive, and they don't make them like they used to. It's very true. In terms of engineering and manufacturing, it's very true. So the older cars are really meaningful, and they're worth something because they feel different. I love driving the older Lexus and Toyota models with you as well. So hopefully those things are helpful. If it was helpful, put some comments so Ahmed and I can also learn from you, or be able to make some comments in terms of the questions you might have. And if you haven't subscribed to Ahmed's channel, please do that. He's already way bigger than mine, but his channel deserves to continue to grow, and hopefully you'll like my stuff and subscribe to my channel as well. But until next video, and hopefully not 1 year later, Ahmed.
Yes, let's do it more
we have to
often.
say goodbye for now. And best wishes to you and your
Thank you so
family.
much.
You means so much to the whole community and to us. And you're always the bright stars in my
Thank you
life.
so
And then
much.
we always secretly say we're two brothers from
Yes,
different
we are.
life background.
We
All
are.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye, guys.